Yeah, I played some video games last year. In fact, I completed 38 of them in 2021. There were some fighting games, narrative choice-based games, muscle, march. But today, I'd like to highlight some of my favorites that I played last year. And just like last time, the game's year of release is irrelevant here. This is just a spicy list of stuff that garnered the strongest reaction from me. Let's Catch is a WiiWare title developed by legendary Japanese developer Yuji Naka, known for creating the Sonic games, and that's it, he did nothing else, his legacy remains untarnished. In Let's Catch, you use a Wii remote to throw and catch a baseball. Now, to answer your question of why anyone over the age of 6 would want to touch this, is because this game only pretends to be about playing catch. Like daydreaming while you're driving and suddenly 20 minutes have passed and you're pretty sure you haven't gone through a red light yet, the catching and throwing aspect of Let's Catch quickly becomes an automated, long-forgotten activity as the mundanity means you begin to chat with the characters you're playing with, and you end up partaking in the ever-human bonding activity of connecting over a monotonous task. I don't know what it is about them. It's just somehow easier to open up to someone when you're both focusing on something together. Like cleaning or playing table tennis, one second you're talking about the weather, the next you're revealing which one of your pet's deaths hit you the hardest, and you end up walking away from that conversation shocked at how much you've overshared. Now this acquaintance who you've just met now knows you more intimately than your own mother does, and this game somehow perfectly emulates that feeling. The slow peeling back of the psyche's defenses after having established a safe and honest environment. The people of this small town suburb become so vulnerable and open up to you in ways with dialogue you'd never expect from what looks like a bargain bin Wii title. The children you play with, pure and naive, are completely unfiltered in thought. Too young to understand they're developing in really broken homes. And when you then play catch with their parents for some reason, they reveal just what it is exactly that they're hiding from their children, protecting them from the cold hard truth that they are deeply unhappy and are crumbling under the weight of their responsibilities. They share those kinds of thoughts that they've been thinking for a while now, but only upon finally saying them aloud do they realize that's how they truly feel. Many even try to change the topic, understanding the weight of what they've shared is far too heavy before abruptly looping the topic back around to that personal revelation because they're in too deep now and they need to get it all off their chest. Another reason why I love Let's Catch, though, is because it's such a sincere depiction of suburbia, one that accurately highlights the domestic issues that plague that part of town, the bubbling toxicity that broken families bury behind their white picket fences. There's also, aliens, but don't worry about that part for now. For what it's worth, Let's Catch is also an exclusively motion control based game that I don't hate with every fiber of my being, mostly because it's completely functional. It just works. Overall, I was so taken aback by this little WiiWare title last year, but unfortunately the Wii eShop servers aren't online anymore, so it's unlikely you or anyone you know will ever play this. However, considering the gameplay is so basic, I think seeking out footage of it will grant you almost the exact same experience that I had with it. I don't play too many Metroidvania games. I find evolutions in the genre don't occur all that often, and thus a lot of them end up feeling like homages to what came before, as opposed to having something new and of substance to say. It's also quite odd they all insist on the exact same dark, brooding atmosphere. I get it, guys, the original Metroid was very spooky, but of course, all of this pales in comparison to my most petty of reasons, because the name of the genre sucks. Why everyone just collectively settled for this mediocrity is beyond me. Like, I would have accepted them as search action games or something, at least that name tries. I suppose first-person shooters should consider themselves lucky they're not categorized as Doomensteins. However, the one series I'll always make an exception for are the Shantae games. Priding themselves on charming writing and vibrant visuals, they're just such an upbeat, silly time in a genre that tends to take itself a bit seriously. And Shantae and the Pirate's Curse is what I consider the series' pinnacle. It has as competent a story as you'll find from a 2D search action game. Its platforming, puzzle gameplay is the perfect amount of challenging, and it looks gorgeous too, despite originally releasing in 2014 on the 3DS and Wii U. I mean, that pixel sprite art was my jam before the series transitioned to a cleaner, sharper vector art style. There's just something about next level pixel art that I'm a sucker for. Plus, I like pirates, and this one has pirate in the title, and the others don't, so this is the best one. In terms of gameplay, Pirate's Curse takes a lot of liberties from the Zelda series, with dungeons containing item-based puzzles, so I actually think this is a great place to start if you're looking to dip your toe into the genre. You'll often encounter an obstacle despite having tried everything, but then you find an item and it's like, oh, that's what I was supposed to, like, now I can do the thing. It has such a satisfying feeling of progression because each item provides a new angle to approach combat from, but they also drastically change the way you traverse the game's environment. Now, the game is imperfect. It has some annoying backtracking and progression obstacles requiring solutions that make you question how anyone was supposed to know how to do that, but I'm the kind of guy where if I become frustrated with a game's ambiguity, I'll just look up a walkthrough guide until I'm on the right track again, so I never truly felt stonewalled by this title. Everything else about it was just too good to have ever made me want to put it down. I almost appreciate this game more than I'd like it, if that makes sense. Like, I never developed this deep, resonant, emotional connection to it, but it's one of those titles that comes along where I don't expect a whole lot, so I end up getting completely blown away at just how well constructed it is in every aspect. So I'm compelled to tip my fedora. So, I haven't touched a Tomb Raider game since the reboot way back in 2013, but I kept hearing its sequel was the highlight of the recent trilogy, so I hesitantly checked it out. Unfortunately though, I didn't care for the story at all, and rolled my eyes at the body count racked up by the early 20s history buff. But my god, of all things, the side content in this game sucked me in like nothing else last year. You know, the part where you raid tombs. And I think it's because the environmental puzzles found in these areas hit that difficulty sweet spot. I love when games offer you that eureka moment after you've been banging your head against the wall for a couple of minutes, and here it felt like it happened with almost every tomb. Also, the environmental design across the entire game, but in these areas specifically, was jaw-dropping. These are some of the most well-realized ancient locations in any game I've ever played, and because it puts in the work from an atmospheric standpoint, it makes the item discovery in these locations so addictive. Finding the hidden treasures here was an instant dopamine hit. What I loved about them is that they're never just there. You have to go off the beaten path in an area that's already considered optional, so it makes their discovery that much more satisfying. Every time I found one, I'd immediately admire the little model and flip it around while learning about it through Lara's narration. I can't imagine how many hours went into creating these models that most players will ignore. And 99% of the time I am that player, but through the lens of Lara, all of this was genuinely exciting. Now, upon writing this video, I actually struggled to remember a single reward I gained from completing these optional tombs. And that might just end up being the highest praise I can give Rise of the Tomb Raider. When I'm doing side content, just because it's a treat in itself, you're doing something right. Finally, I loved the Blood Ties DLC that came with the Game of the Year edition. It's a short side story that takes place within Croft Manor, and I think it's some of the best narrative-based walking simulator gameplay since Gone Home and What Remains of Edith Finch. Traversing the mansion was captivating. It provided so much more tension and mystery than what the campaign did for me. I wish this DLC were available to purchase separately because it offers such a different perspective on Lara Croft and can absolutely appeal to those who aren't into the third-person open-world games. Plus, I don't think a video game's becoming a little more disposable is necessarily a bad thing. This DLC is just over an hour long, yet it remains one of my most memorable gaming experiences of last year. Selfishly, I hope the Tomb Raider comes back soon, because the industry is honestly a sadder place without her. I just hope that if she does, the reimagining is closer to the Angelina Jolie Lara Croft, as opposed to the who needs a personality when you have a dad Lara Croft.
Dad was right. Dad was right. Dad's notes mentioned this. If only Dad could have seen this. In one of Dad's books. Dad never made the connection to Katash.
Dad's clues mention Mum's paintings. Dad's safe. Dad's papers. Dad's artifacts.
Fingers crossed. In 2017, I made a choice. I was either going to buy a little Kickstarter game or Super Mario Odyssey, and I ended up going with the latter. And I'm gonna be honest, I think I made the wrong choice. because now having finally played A Hat in Time, I think it's my favorite 3D platformer of the last 10 years. I mean, every time I sat down with it, it was like lowering myself into a warm bath. I hate to draw direct comparison to Odyssey, but I think Hat Kid is so much more endearing as a character, unfortunately, in a way Mario will never be, mostly because he has the Mickey Mouse problem. It'd be a lie to suggest he's a character as much as he is an icon, a literal face of a company, so he's forbidden from having flaws. In fact, most platforming mascots don't. They are without consideration because the point of the game is to run around and collect stuff, which is why I consider A Hat in Time to be so special. About a girl trying to collect timepieces in order to power her spaceship to return to Earth. Only she encounters Mustache Girl, who discovers their other ability, which can stop and rewind time. She wants to use them to rid the world of all the bad people, while Hat Kid just wants to get home, creating a very awkward conflict of interest. The dynamic of the babyface protagonist having the more selfish motivations provided so much more meaning to the collectathon. And I don't mean to misrepresent the game here, this cutscene is kind of all you get, there's no complex narrative beyond this, it's just a goofy platforming adventure full of hijinks, but the simple act of establishing stakes like that creates an adventure that is so much more compelling than just saving the damsel in distress. And I don't pretend to claim it's better than Mario Odyssey because it's nowhere near as polished. At times it really feels like a Kickstarter game, but because it's brimming with such personality, I certainly found it more enjoyable. I mean, it's impossible to do anything but smirk like an idiot upon seeing Hat Kid tiptoeing around a haunted mansion animated with movements straight out of Scooby-Doo, or when playing the level where it parodies Murder on the Orient Express. These locations and scenarios aren't solely to provide cheap gags either. The worlds are so much more considered than just Lava World and Water World. With each having its own unique habitants and dilemmas and hierarchies, it feels like they are living, breathing ecosystems that existed prior to Hat Kid arriving and will continue to after she leaves. Traversing them is also so much fun as movement is super crisp too. Finally, I wanted to highlight how fantastic I think the DLC is. This was actually the first game where I ever paid for DLC before, like separately from the base game. That's how much faith I had in A Hat in Time to deliver from a level design standpoint, because after the main story, I needed more. And both additional worlds were my two favorites in the entire game. One involves Hat Kid hopping aboard a cruise line that boasts how unsinkable it is, you'll never guess how that one's gonna end, and the other has her traversing the bustling Nyakuza metro, a metropolitan overrun by the Cat Mafia. There is no segue for that sentence. You'd find it difficult to locate a more lukewarm Sonic fan than myself, because I didn't play them growing up. I eventually got around to playing what I considered the quote-unquote good Sonic games and the unironic masterpiece that is the Sonic Dreams collection, but I always felt like there's been this barrier between me and the Blue Hedgehog. That was until I played Sonic Adventure. A game that is pure, crystallized spectacle that was unavailable anywhere else at the time. It's absolutely style over substance, but I will have that by the heaping tablespoon, thank you very much. It's also one of the most visually appealing games I've ever played. I'll reiterate again how I'm a sucker for turn of the century early 3D, so I think this just looks incredible. If I was to make a video game, I'd want it to look like Sonic Adventure. There's just such a vibrance to this world, and the sheer variety of locales it crams in within its short playthrough, it manages to truly feel like an adventure. For example, you don't select a level via an overworld map, you walk through the bustling city and get the train to it. It's such a small difference, but it gives the illusion that this world is so much bigger than it is. Now to clarify, I played the PC version of Sonic Adventure DX here, which is recognized by fans as a pretty stinky port of the game. But, and don't go telling anyone about this now, there's a fan mod that recovers the original Dreamcast textures, and I think the difference between them aesthetically is night and day. In terms of controls, you'll want to pray in the hopes of receiving some kind of divine answer to understand how Sonic moves within this game. He's like butter on roller skates. It's complete chaos, but if you somehow learn how to harness it, he is so much fun. Like a 3-degree incline will send him fucking rocketing into the sky. Trying to break this game is probably more entertaining than actually completing it. Most importantly though, I think this game finally made me get Sonic from a character perspective. I don't think I was particularly interested in who he was prior to his Dreamcast redesign, but I'm down to have a beer with this cool guy who helps his friends turn into the Millennium version of Sonic. Maybe it's because the cutscenes are so awful they almost loop back around to being endearing, I don't know. Regardless, it actually made me check out the recent Sonic comics from IDW Publishing, and I had myself a fantastic Sunday afternoon with them. So I have Adventure to thank for helping me turn a corner on the little guy. Now, I'm going to politely refrain from googling pictures of his feet or anything, but I do think he's cool. Thanks for watching.